This is our fifth and final candidate, Matt O'Malley. Will have a 2-minute open.
Thank you. Thank you, Ruben, Melissa. Thank you, and thank you for doing this to the JP Progressives. This is a great showing. It's not surprising. You guys have really established yourself as an incredible force in this neighborhood, in this city, and I'm delighted to be here. Thank you for allowing me a couple minutes and an opportunity to say hello and talk a little bit about myself, and then I'm looking forward to getting to the question and answer. I live in Jamaica Plain. I've lived here for just under 4 years. I grew up in Roslindale. I was born in a triple-decker in Roslindale, and a very working-class family. We didn't have much, but I didn't know it. I thought we had everything in the world because we had an incredible neighborhood, a great community, and it wasn't just my family and extended family, but it was people down the block, neighbors, friends, people who helped me have an incredible opportunity to grow and to thrive in this city. They had a stake in me, they believed in me, and caused me to believe in myself. I was very lucky that I was able to get into Boston Latin School, which was an incredible place. And from there, I really began to develop a strong sense of community and a real desire to serve the community that I knew and that I know and that I love. I started a real interest in government while I was at Latin School and started interning for a city councilor. I used to work at Roach Brothers on Center Street, and I'd finish up a shift there and hop on the orange line and go to City Hall, still wearing my Roach Brothers issued gray and maroon tie, because it was one of the few ties I had. And I'd go and answer the phone and stuff envelopes, and really had an incredible appreciation of how local government can work. From there I went off to school in D.C., worked as an aide to a councilman in Washington, D.C., came back home, worked for my dad, who was a contractor, worked in government, tried running for office myself, managed the campaign of Andrea Cabral, our JP neighbor from right down the street, which was a strong vindication that when you talk about issues and put together a campaign that can look like and reflects the diversity and the vibrancy of a district or of a county, you can win. Very few people thought we could win. We had a huge win. From there I worked with the sheriff for a couple of years as her legislative director. I spent a year as the political director of Mass Equality, where I had the great fortune of working with many people in this room, getting to know you all, or getting to know many of you. And then went off and worked on a couple of other campaigns, and then this campaign's about 2.5 months old, but I'm running because I believe I have that unique experience in the public sector, in the private sector, but more than that, in the community. I was one of the first buddies for the Jason Roberts Challengers League, which is a little league program for kids with mental and physical handicaps. I began working with the Clean and Green West Roxbury, which is a neighborhood cleanup group. I taught CCD at my parish. I'm involved with Project Hope, which is a social service agency in Dudley Square that helps women and families get back on their feet and up and out of poverty. So it's that unique mix of energy, of experience, that I believe makes me the best candidate to serve in this seat. And I very humbly and sincerely ask for your vote tonight. I'm running because I want some kid in some triple-decker in Roslindale or West Roxbury or Jamaica Plain or any other city or town across the country, across the world, to come to this city or to stay in this city, to develop the same love of this city that I have, and to one day run for this seat or run for another seat, or do well and thrive, have the same support, have the same perseverance, have the same love of this community and desire to serve this community that I have, and I want them to do well. And that's why I'm running.
So we're going to ask you some questions based on your questionnaire. We'll start with the issue of affordable housing. You came out very strongly in favor of the Forest Hills Improvement Initiative, 50% affordability on public lands, 30% on private. There are some neighborhood forces over in the Forest Hills area that are pretty actively opposed to this. Do you feel like you will stand up with that support? And can you talk a little bit about specific steps that you think that you can influence the final decision on getting that initiative through?
Absolutely. This city, the middle class, the working class in this city are feeling the squeeze more than anyone else, just like in cities across the country, particularly here in Boston. And I would hate to see this become the city of the very, very rich and the very, very poor. We need to do more for affordable housing. So this project up in Forest Hills is a great opportunity. Now, I know everyone's not going to be in favor of it, but quite frankly, you're not electing someone who's not going to take a position. I believe strongly in this. We need to be doing more to keep people in, particularly the southwest part of the city. Jamaica Plain, there's a reason why it's such a vibrant and great neighborhood and why people want to come here and people want to live here. It's why I decided to live here when I bought my first home about 4 years ago. So I support the levels that were put forth in that proposal. If I'm lucky enough to get elected, I will fight for them with every fiber of my being, using the full force of the office to make sure that we can do that. I think we need to be doing more to create home ownership. One of the things I talk about is emulating a program that's been used to great success in Chicago, a rent-to-own option. We've got some great affordable housing programs in the city, but more can be done, and quite frankly, more needs to be done. So we'll be working with the mayor, working with the administration, working with the state legislature, and doing more to make sure that we can have true mixed use, mixed tenant, mixed income housing, and make sure that people have an opportunity to stay in the city.
I know it's a little warm in this room. I'm sorry, the air
Well,
conditioner is a
It's
little loud.
always
so
the case with this place.
our apologies. You indicated strong support for charter reform. In fact, you said you wanted to be on the ad hoc committee for charter reform. Can you talk a little bit about some specific proposals that you would like to see in the charter reform
Absolutely.
committee?
So Councilor Tobin was the head of the special committee on charter reform. It happens every 10 or so years. We're up this year. And I support seeing a number of initiatives. One would be empowering the council to have more power, particularly when it comes to budget. I would love to see the council have a line item veto when it comes to the budget that's submitted every year. You know, we've got some great things that are happening, but the council can and should play a larger role in that. Another thing I talk about is having a hybrid school committee. This is something that would happen through the charter reform. We used to have an all-elected school committee. It's been all appointed. In Washington, D.C., when I was working as an aide to a counselor down there, they implemented a hybrid system that's been used to great success. Basically, half the seats are elected, half the seats are appointed. Therefore, you get a much better diverse array of ideas and opinions. Now, I don't think going to an all-elected school board is necessarily the way to go, because quite frankly, I think some elements of politics should be removed from the school committee, and I think history has borne that out. So by having the best of both worlds, having people who can really present an array of diverse opinions and ideas, coupled with people who have strong support and experience in educational process, as well as having a diverse array of opinions from the 22 wards across the city, I think makes sense. It would be something that I would certainly push for if I'm lucky enough to get elected.
And do you think that the city council should have more power in comparison to the mayor? Is that a position that you would take?
I wouldn't say more. I mean, right now we have, you know, a so-called strong mayor, weak council form of government. I don't know that that fully encapsulates it. I think the council can be as strong as its members want to make it. I certainly would support a better sharing of power, particularly when it comes to budgetary items, something, as I mentioned, with the line item provision in the budget. But so I would certainly be amenable to working, you know, with residents and working with councilors and the administration to facilitate just that.
So one of the big issues in last year's city council mayoral races was the role of the BRA and whether or not the BRA needed reform and what reforms were needed. Do you think the BRA currently does a good job? And specifically, do you think it does a good job in regards to housing and development projects in District 6 in Jamaica Plain?
I think it does do a good job, but there's room for improvement. I do support separating the planning and development function. I've been on record of this for quite a while. And I think that we can work better as a council, or the council can work better with communities and making sure that we have smart growth, fair development, making sure that we are able to truly facilitate protecting the integrity of neighborhoods with more commercial development. I firmly believe that you can be a progressive and pro-development as long as it's done the right way. So we've seen it, you know, done terrifically in Rosendale Square, where I grew up. Rosendale Square 20 years ago was essentially a ghost town. Now it can be more different. It's vibrant. It's got terrific restaurants, bookstores. We've seen it in Jamaica Plain, you know, with the brewery, with Bella Luna moving down, with the Ula Cafe, with the gym. We're seeing some good neighborhood mixed-use development that's happening, and I think that the BRA has done well there. Having said that, I would support having some reform there and making sure that the community process plays a larger role in neighborhood development.
And a question that came up earlier about abolishing the BRA altogether, would you?
No, I mean, I think that I would not support that. I mean, I think there needs to be some sort of a mechanism in place to make sure that there is strong support and the community plays a role, and I think, you know, certainly the BRA could and should play a facilitator in that. But again, it comes down to having some autonomy with planning and development.
So on schools, you probably saw a recent study that ranked Boston schools as the fourth most segregated school system in the country, specifically isolating Black Latino students in low-performing schools. What, if anything, do you think needs to be done to change the situation, and maybe tie it a little bit to your school transportation response, and how those tie together?
I don't know. That was an alarming study. I don't know that it really painted a true picture because it did not include simply the city of Boston. It was the region that went all the way up in the study, including, I believe, up to New Hampshire. That having been said, clearly there is a divide, and we need to be doing more with public education. I support traditional public education. I support more funding for our schools. I come from a family of Boston Public School teachers. I know what works. We all know what works, what doesn't work. So we need to be looking at ways to have more teachers in the classroom, which would lower class size. We need to be looking at extending the school day by an hour, obviously properly compensating our teachers for that. We need to have better enrichment. We need to have better public-private partnerships with different stakeholders and people who can play a role facilitating excellence in education. At Boston Latin, there's a great success story called Saturday Success School, which brings in parents and alums and teachers and business and civic leaders into schools on Saturday, and kids can go in and tutor or learn or try something else. It's a model that also has worked well with citizen schools, with Eric Schwartz, who used to live in Jamaica Plain, unfortunately lost him to Brookline, but he's done yeoman's work in building better enrichment for our students. So that's something that we need to be doing that's going to increase standards and success stories across the board. I do support a return to having more seats for neighborhood schools. I do think that parental involvement is a key aspect. In Jamaica Plain, we've seen the Manning School, which was never sought after as one of the best schools, really become one of the best in the district. And that's largely because we've seen greater parental involvement. We've seen parents essentially adopt that school, and it's gone to great success. Now, the Manning's in Moss Hill, one of the most affluent parts of the district, so that has not gone unnoticed. But there's certainly more that we can do in lower income neighborhoods and parts of the city to make sure that we've got better parental involvement and more opportunities for kids after school, preschool programs, universal pre-K. It's all part of a larger conversation that I think we need to be having, and we need to be implementing strong, solid ideas that are really going to help build the best public educational system in the country.